Good morning. My name is Jacob Booth, and I am the Weird Christian Dude. Today we are going to be studying Genesis chapter 11. And the whole earth was one language and of one speech. Right there, verse 1 is it's kind of a surprise to some people because languages didn't develop separately. They were all speaking one language, and it doesn't say what language that is. Some people suggest that it's Hebrew. However, there's no evidence for that, and it's probably no language that currently exists. Its own starting language, I guess, of God. Verse 2, and it came to pass, as they journeyed from the east, that they found a plain in the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And they said one to another, Go to, let us make brick, and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone, and slime had they for mortar. And they said, let us build a city, and a tower, whose top may reach unto heaven, and let us make us a name, lest we be scattered abroad upon the whole face of the earth. Upon the face of the whole earth. So, the intent of the people at this time was to stay together. In chapter 10, it talks about Nimrod, the mighty hunter, who was the beginning of the kingdom of Babel in the land of Shinar. That's what this is. This is the plains of Shinar. That would be commonly understood today as Iraq, basically. The Mesopotamia, the very what areas between the two rivers of the Tigris and Euphrates. Some people think that their intent was to try to reach heaven and to be closer to God. I don't think that's true, figuratively or literally. If they literally wanted to do that, they would have started at the top of a mountain to get a head start, I guess. But no, their intent was to stay together, not be scattered, which is directly opposite of what God told them to do, which was to go forth and be fruitful and multiply and subdue the earth. So this is in direct defiance of God's command. Verse 5, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of the men builded. And the Lord said, Behold, the people is one, and they have one language, and this they begin to do, and now nothing will be restrained from them which they have imagined to do. So this is a repeat of the problem previously in Genesis chapter 6. And when they had a one world government and one language, and when there was no restraints, the people all went to evil continually. That just happened. So they're going and doing the exact same things again. And God already promised that he wouldn't destroy the whole world again with a great flood. So in verse 7, he takes additional steps, saying, Go to, let us go down, and there confound their language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So in order to restrain evil, God invented languages. That's why it's a language barrier. It's called that, and that's what it's actually intended to do. It creates a barrier between people so they cannot just do every evil thing imaginable. Verse 8, so the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of all the earth, and they left off to build the city. And therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord did there confound the language of all the earth. From thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of all the earth. The Bible frequently states things twice, sometimes in a slightly different way, and it creates emphasis. So God created language and he scattered people abroad upon all the face of the earth. And what that basically means is that people were forced to spread out because you couldn't talk to each other. You, uh, they would have to group together with who they could talk to and then figure things out from there. Verse 10. These are the generations of Shem. Shem was 100 years old and begot Aphadak to Aphaxad 2 years after the flood. And Shem lived after he begot Aphaxad 500 years and begot sons and daughters. And Aphaxad lived 530 years and begot Selha. And Aphadax lived after he begot Selha 403 years and begot sons and daughters. And Selha lived 30 years and begot Eber. And Selha lived after he begot Eber 403 years and begot sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years and begot Peleg. And Uber lived after he begot Peleg 430 years and begot sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years and begot Reu. And Peleg lived after he begot Reu 209 years and begot sons and daughters. So in verse 16, Peleg was born 101 years after the flood of Noah. That makes him the 5th generation. Yes. And he lived for 239 years. In Genesis chapter 10 verse 25, it says, and Eber was born to sons. The name of the one was Peleg, for in his days the earth was divided. So previously stated in verse 8 and 9, God scattered people abroad and then divided the earth. So that's how every time explorers went to a new area, the United States, the continent of South America, Australia, tiny islands in the ocean, they always found indigenous people there because they were there first and then the land was divided after that. Just for visual aid, South America and West Africa are on different continental plates and about 1,600 miles apart. So in 239 years, that was about 4 feet per hour that they would be moving, which is really slowly. People can exist on something moving 4 feet per hour. You wouldn't even notice it. The expanse would gradually get greater, but it's not a super dramatic shift like some people would imagine. And then it's docked where it is. It's not currently moving. So when modern scientists look at the tectonic plates and they're not moving, they just sort of shake a little bit, they conclude that it must have taken millions of years based on their current non-moving. But that's not how it was, because it was something that started, got to where it is now, and then stopped. So they have a logical fallacy that things are always doing the same thing at the same speed. All right, and verse 20. And Ruha lived 230 years and begot Serug. And Reu lived after he begot Serug 207 years and begot sons and daughters. And Serug lived 30 years and begot Nahor. And Serug lived after he begot Nahor 200 years and begot sons and daughters. And Nahor lived 29 years and begot Terah. And Nahor lived after he begot Terah 119 years and begot sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years and begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran. So this is where Abram comes in. He is later renamed Abraham, and he is the 10th generation after the flood of Noah. This is actually 292 years after the flood. Peleg was 101 years after the flood. And because of how long people lived, a lot of the generations I just read were still alive. In fact, Shem is still alive, his 10th generation grandfather, because it said that he lived, verse 10, Shem lived after begot Aphodax 500 years. Well, this is less than 300 years after, so Shem was still alive. And in fact, in Genesis chapter 9, verse 28, it says, and Noah lived after the flood 350 years. So Noah is still alive when Abram, who will be renamed Abraham, is born. And will, in fact, see Abraham all the way up until he's age 58. So that is a massive extended family because people lived so long. Verse 27. And now these are the generations of Terah. Terah begot Abram, Nahor, and Haran begot Lot. So Lot, who is also important in the upcoming chapters, is the nephew of Abram. Verse 29. 28. And Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his nativity in Ur of the Chaldees. So that's very unfortunate to die before your father. Verse 29. And Abram and Nahor took them wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarai. She will later be renamed Sarah. And the name of Nahor's wife, Milcah, the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah, and the father of Iskar. So in this verse, Nahor marries Milcah, who is his niece. And it's interesting because it specifically restates who her father is because their grandfather is also named Nahor and is still alive, and you wouldn't want that to be confused. Anyways, verse 30. But Sarah was barren and had no children. That's sad. I'm not sure why that's in there. Maybe that's very rare in this case, Sarah not having any children. Because obviously they had lots of children. And they lived for a very long time. So that must have been an unusual exception that they wanted to list. Verse 31. And Terah took Abram his son, and Lot, the son of Haran, his son's son, and Sarai, his daughter-in-law, his son Abram's wife, and they went forth with them from Ur the Chaldees to go into the land of Canaan. And they came unto Haran and dwelt there. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. So Haran is a person and has his own land that is also named Haran. But basically, because his son had died, so his family didn't have people, and Abram and his wife didn't have any children. They all sort of went together and stayed with relatives. And really, this sort of points out that the nations originally, and sort of still are, basically very extended families. And this case, Abram can trace back 11 generations to Noah, who's still alive. So if you trace back 11 generations of your own family, how huge that family tree would be. I've only recently learned about some relatives I have in Switzerland that are 6 and 7 generations removed. But if you would also include long lifespans at this point in history, it would still be alive. There'd be so many additional people, your grandparents and great grandparents, and just kept on living. So that's really what nations are, and it would be if people didn't die off, would be extended families that just grew. forever. Uh, just my thoughts. So thank you for watching. Have a wonderful evening, and you are always welcome to come and talk to me.